Hi, I'm Lee. My pronouns are they, them, and I'm back with another update on navigating cancer. So on my last video, I had shared that I had made it through surgery. I am now a full month out of surgery, so I've had more than 4 weeks of healing. My as I fondly refer to them, my stab wounds have healed up for the most part quite nicely. Very minimal issues, and I am feeling pretty close to back to normal on the outside. The inside still feels a little bit like some major stuff has happened in there, but overall I am like back to work and feeling like my energy is still low. My body is definitely still working on some healing stuff, but I'm not in like constant pain and discomfort. I a lot of times can go about my day, and aside from feeling tired, I'm not constantly being pulled back to like something feels wrong, it's a really nice experience to no longer be having. So that's been great. I had my chemo teach, which I don't remember if I had that before the last update video, but that's where they like walk me through the process of what chemotherapy will look like for me. I had that session. I also had that check-in that I mentioned with the second kind of specialist oncologist who specializes in the very specific type of colorectal cancer with stage 4 liver mets that I have. And she said she recommends the same path of treatment as the initial course, and she will also be following along as I go and following my labs and test results as we go and all of the monitoring. And so if anything isn't going exactly according to the way we want it to go, if my cancer numbers aren't dropping in my bloodstream, if other numbers are, changing in directions we don't want them to go, she will be checking in with my local oncologist here, and they will continue to work on what needs to change and if I need different chemotherapy or other supports to make sure that we weed this cancer out of my garden as best as possible and get me back on a path that is healthy. So my first, what they call cycle of treatment, will start on May 12th. And I think I talked about it in the last one. The cycles will be 2-week-long cycles. And it starts with a 48-hour window of basically infusion. A dear friend of mine last night, I was referring to it as like, I'll get like a 48-hour steeping period, like a really strong cup of tea. So apparently my new identifier, according to them, is now Earl Grey. So there you go. I'm Earl Grey. I will steep for 48 hours in a tea bag of chemo cocktail called FOLFOX for short. It's a combination of 3 different chemotherapy drugs, and like 2 of them will be infused intensely over a course of like 4 to 6 hours at the hospital on Monday morning, and then they will through that port that I had shared in one of my early videos that I have in my chest, and then they will attach I'll have a little pouch of chemotherapy in a container that's like attached to that port in a little pouch on a little satchel that I can take home, and will be attached to me for 48 hours. And that will just slow steep over the next 2 days. And once that little cartridge is emptied, I will go back to the hospital like midday Wednesday, and they will disconnect it and cleanse out my port and close everything up. And I will go home for the next week and a half, let my body cleanse out all of the chemotherapy drugs, drink lots of water, flush my system out, and then the start of 2 weeks later, start that back up and do another 2-week cycle. So I will do 12 of those cycles, so approximately 6 months of those. of that process. And throughout that entire time, we'll just be testing, checking my blood, doing some body scans, making sure nothing is showing up as new cancer forming or new things happening. So that is what's happening on a physical level. I am still grappling with, I'm not excited about this. Chemo is not something that I am excited or delighted about in any way. I don't think anyone ever is. It would be a little awkward if I was, I think, but no judgment if you're out there and you are. But it's scary. There's a lot of unknowns, and to be quite frank, like chemotherapy drugs are quite literally a poison that is really good at killing cancer cells, and it's really good at killing everything. But the trick with chemotherapy is they count on our bodies being stronger than the cancer. So they put the poison in our bodies and they count on the cancer dying off before our bodies die off. Which is why while going through chemotherapy, we have to protect ourselves because it shuts down our entire immune system. We no longer are able to protect ourselves from infections and colds and viruses. And like I just had to go do, I think cumulatively over 6 hours worth of time in the dentist chair because they wanted to make sure that anything that looked potentially like it could be a cavity or any fillings that looked like potentially might be starting to deteriorate, they just reworked everything in my mouth that might be potentially turn into any kind of decay or infection out. Like anything that could lead to something that my body won't be able to fight once the chemotherapy starts had to be removed. And so it's just a really sobering thought to know, like I am kind of like doing the intense weed chemicals throughout my entire garden to kill off the dandelions that I don't want, or to make sure no dandelions come back, because we know these dandelions are very aggressive, and we don't want to take any chances because of how harmful they can be. And so yeah, so moving into this is scary, and also I'm slowly absorbing what information I feel that I need to be able to be ready for starting chemotherapy in 2 weeks. And I am grateful for all of the people who have shown up for me and continue to show up for me in various ways throughout this process. And for all the people who are local who are going to be offering me rides to my chemotherapy sessions. And yeah, I am scared, and I am hopeful, and I am grateful. And I want to shift into what has been showing up for me. And I think the biggest thing in the past couple of weeks since I last talked to you all was I was in a cancer support group call yesterday. There are several really lovely support groups, and one in particular I found is we were having a conversation, and one of the people in the group spoke up about how several people actually were speaking up about how frustrating it is that once you've been diagnosed with cancer, it is kind of a life sentence. It's even for people like myself, where my doctors are like, the plan, the goal is this is curative. We're not saying this is the life sentence, like you're gonna live with cancer and you're always gonna be fighting the cancer. We're gonna do the surgery, we're gonna do the chemotherapy, and the intention is that we will remove this cancer. It will be the end of this cancer. Yes, and I will always be on a watch list. I will always be going in to check. I will always be having tests. Initially, it will be every 3 or 6 months, and then it will maybe move to once every year. But for the rest of my life, there will always be a, let's check, let's make sure, let's check those levels, let's get a lab run to make sure, because cancer is sneaky like that, and we just don't know. We don't know enough. We don't know why or how, but if you've gotten it once, there's a good chance you will continue to. And so the people in the group were just like feeling the sobering weight of, this is for the rest of our lives. This isn't just like I get the surgeries, I do the chemo, I do the radiation, I do the immunotherapy, I do whatever I have to do, my doctors tell me, and after weeks, months, years, I'll be done and I can get back to my life and everything will be like it was. No, it's actually, that's not how cancer works. And it's really like a whole reality shift. It's beyond just a mindset shift. It's a whole everything shift. And then one of the people in the group piped up because they have not only like gone through their diagnosis, their treatment, their surgeries, and moved into the stage of, just monitoring for, and they had a recurrence. They had new cancer show up and are starting back into more surgery, more chemo, more radiation for this new cancer. And the stress and the sadness of, they had known themselves before cancer to be someone who was strong like a bull, and like I could do anything and I could power through, and I could, like even if I was having a bad day, like I just knew I could just push through and I could be fine. And it wasn't like that anymore. Like even after fully recovering after their initial round with cancer, they never made it back to that full strength who they used to be before chemo and radiation and everything they went through for their type of cancer. And so in the group we were all just kind of talking about this awareness of what it means to be a member of this community, to be someone diagnosed with cancer and someone living with that diagnosis, regardless of what stage you're at, what process you're in, where you're at in the process, how many rounds of chemo you've been through, whether you've just been diagnosed or whether you've done all the work and now you're just monitoring. And for me, it was taking a step back and really thinking through, like, yeah, actually, I've always known myself to be the strong one. Like I like to talk about like my Disney Pixar therapy sessions, and I laugh about the song in Encanto about Luisa, the big sister who's the big strong one, and her whole song is about, I'm the strong one, I'm not nervous, and my family will put all their burdens on me and never question whether I can handle it. And I always, like, that was part of my identity. That was like, I can hold space for people going through hard things. I can carry literally heavy burdens for people. I'd help people move and lift the heavy boxes and lift the heavy furniture. And, when siblings or friends were going through really hard emotional things, I would just be there to hold those hard things for them and help carry them through hard times. And as I am going through and moving into, about to take on chemotherapy, recognizing this chemotherapy is going to change me physically, and this cancer diagnosis is changing me emotionally. And numerous times now I've had to set different boundaries for myself and say, I can't be here for you emotionally the way I would have been here for someone who I love in the past, and I can't, I don't have the capacity to show up in the same way that I used to for people I love. And I don't have, and I'm terrified of what this chemotherapy is going to do to me physically. I went through the chemo teach, the class, to learn about my specific, the side effects of my specific chemotherapy, and there are likely immediate side effects like nausea and loss of appetite and sores in my mouth that will make it so I won't even want to put food in my mouth, let alone swallow it, and neuropathy, where like I will either lose sensation in my hands, fingers, feet, toes, or just have like painful tingling sensation. I'll have extreme reaction in response to like anything cold, like even less than, even potentially room temperature, or anything less than room temperature could be like wildly painful or uncomfortable. And I already don't like cold, so the idea of like you know, just like sipping some water that came from the tap that isn't room temperature could be wildly painful, could cause my throat to start to close up, you know, like, and just like these really extreme things. And these are like during chemo treatment. But what I'm learning is some of these things don't go away after chemo treatment for some people. And I won't know if I'm one of those people. Some people have the neuropathy forever. Some people never fully get the sensation in their fingertips back or in their toes back. And there are things I can do that might help, but they might not. And I just have to accept that who I am now, who I was before, and who I will be after might be a little different or might be very different. And it's a really sobering thought to take a step back and say, who am I? Like, who is Lee without all of those components of my identity that I've told myself is part of who I am? Like, if I'm not the strong one who can help you move, help you carry those heavy loads physically or emotionally, who am I? And how deeply have I embedded my worth, my value, my lovability into my identity? And I haven't figured this out yet. I don't have the answer to this, but I know deep down there's a powerful lesson for me to learn in receiving the gifts of love that people have been showing up and giving me during this journey, during this time of just receiving the kindness and the love and the groceries and the gifts and the time and the affection and the support that people are giving me, and not tying it to, well, it's because I showed up for them or it's because I did something. This is unconditional love, and allowing me, myself, to just receive all of these gifts from people because they love me without needing to owe them anything in return. So this has been a really powerful learning experience for me, and now I am trying to like take this next level of who am I without those components that I believed make me who I am, and deconstructing or like decoupling that from my lovability and my worth. Yeah, it's a wild ride. I was sharing with a friend last night from another support group how it feels very strange, but I am continuing to find like it feels twisted, but I am continuing to reach these moments where I am grateful to the universe for a cancer diagnosis, because I feel like I am learning much deeper lessons and truths about myself, and I am actually becoming the healthiest version of myself by dealing with the most devastating disease I have ever faced in my body, which seems wildly backward and yet makes so much sense all at the same time. And so I'm going to close with that, and I would love to hear your thoughts. I hope this was helpful to you, and with that, I will see you next time.